What if the reason a movie, a meme, a brand, or even a school rule feels normal isn't because it's natural, but because culture taught us to see it that way? That's the power of cultural studies. It doesn't just ask what is happening, it asks who benefits, who gets left out, and why does this version of reality feel so obvious? In the next few minutes, let's look at 5 powerful ways cultural studies explains the world around you, and why that matters in everyday life. One of the biggest ideas in cultural studies is that many things we treat as normal are actually socially created. Things like beauty standards, success, masculinity, femininity, even what counts as professional are shaped by media, history, and power. Why is that useful? Because once you see that normal is constructed, you stop assuming it's fixed. That matters when you're choosing what to wear, how to speak, what career to pursue, or how to judge yourself. For example, if a company says professional means one very specific style of dress or speech, cultural studies helps you ask, is that really about professionalism or about cultural bias? Cultural studies looks at how TV, ads, news, and social media don't just reflect reality, they help create it. A product isn't only being sold as a product, it's being sold with a feeling, an identity, a lifestyle. That's why a soda ad can feel like freedom, or a car ad can feel like power. The mechanism here is repeated association. The more often an image is linked with an idea, the more natural that connection feels. This is useful because it makes you a smarter viewer. When you see a headline, trend, or influencer post, you can pause and ask, what message is being packaged here? What emotions are being attached to it? That's a superpower in a world full of persuasion. Cultural studies shows that identity isn't just something you have. It's also something you express, adapt, and perform depending on context. The way you act with friends is different from how you act at work or school, not because you're fake, but because identity is relational. Why does this matter? Because it helps explain why people feel pressure to fit in, code switch, or hide parts of themselves. It also explains why online identity can feel so intense. On social media, people are constantly curating versions of themselves. A concrete example: someone might speak one way at home, another way in a job interview, and another way online. Cultural studies helps us see that as a response to social expectations, not just an individual choice. Cultural studies is obsessed with power, not just governments and laws, but the quieter kind built into habits, institutions, and norms. Who gets represented as smart, beautiful, dangerous, or trustworthy? Those patterns shape opportunities. This is useful because it helps you spot unfair systems that don't always look unfair on the surface. For example, if the same groups are always shown as leaders in films and ads, that repetition can shape what people think leadership looks like. Over time, that affects real decisions in workplaces, classrooms, and politics. Maybe the most practical thing cultural studies gives you is a new way of reading the world. Instead of taking images, trends, and social rules at face value, you start decoding them. That means when you see a viral trend, you ask, why did this spread now? When you see a controversial ad, you ask, what values is it selling? When you notice a social norm, you ask, who made this seem natural? That skill is useful everywhere. Media literacy, marketing, education, politics, even personal relationships. It helps you think more clearly, make better decisions, and avoid being manipulated by what just feels true. So cultural studies isn't just about studying books, movies, or trends. It's about understanding how meaning gets made, how power works quietly, and why the world often feels the way it does. And once you learn to see those patterns, you start noticing them everywhere. 5 powerful ways cultural studies explains the world around you is just one small part of cultural studies. If you're interested, our full free cultural studies course is linked in the description.